We've all had that person, the one who said they cared, who looked at you like you were their safe place, and yet they vanished, not in anger, not in hate, but in silence, and you're left wondering, if they miss me, why don't they come back? Here's the truth you need to hear. Missing you doesn't always mean they're ready for you. For someone who's avoidant, connection feels like both oxygen and suffocation. They want closeness, but the moment it gets real, when emotions start to deepen, they panic. Their mind whispers danger, even when their heart says stay. So yes, they might miss you. They might scroll through old photos, replay your laughter, or even draft a message they'll never send. But their version of missing you doesn't come with the courage to return. Because for them, closeness triggers fear, fear of rejection, fear of dependence, fear of losing themselves. You might be tempted to think, if I just reach out one more time, maybe it'll fix things. But connection built on chasing doesn't heal avoidance, it feeds it. When you chase, you confirm their fear that closeness means pressure, that love means losing control, and they retreat even more. Here's what real strength looks like: staying still when your heart is screaming to move. It's resisting the urge to rescue someone from their own walls. It's understanding that your love can't teach someone who refuses to learn. You are not the cure for someone's avoidance. You are the mirror that shows them what safety could look like if they choose healing. And sometimes, the most powerful message you can send is silence, because when you stop chasing, when you choose self-respect over anxiety, that's when they feel your absence, not just as a void, but as a consequence. They may come back, but if they do, make sure it's because they've grown, not because they're lonely. Don't confuse missing you with readiness for you. One is emotional nostalgia, the other is emotional maturity. And here's the hardest truth. Some people will miss you forever, but never have the courage to love you right. Let them, because your job isn't to make someone stay. It's to make sure you never shrink yourself for someone who can't meet you halfway. So if you're missing someone who's staying away, remind yourself, you didn't lose something broken, they lost something real. And in that quiet strength of letting go, you'll realize you were never waiting for them. You were waiting to remember your own worth. When someone misses you but doesn't return, it can feel confusing and even cruel. You replay moments in your head, search for what went wrong, and wonder why someone who once held you close now acts like you never existed. But what if their distance isn't about you at all? What if missing you and being ready for you are two entirely different emotional realities? That's the truth when it comes to avoidant people. They can miss you, think about you, and even care deeply, yet still not have the emotional capacity to reconnect. Missing you is a feeling. Readiness for you is a choice. And those two don't always meet. Avoidant people often crave love but fear what it represents. To them, intimacy feels like a trap rather than a sanctuary. It's not that they don't want connection. They do, but vulnerability makes them feel unsafe. The moment they start to feel dependent, exposed, or emotionally seen, their instincts push them to withdraw. It's an old pattern rooted in survival, not cruelty. They learned, somewhere along the way, that closeness equals danger. So when they start missing you, their feelings are real, but their fear is louder. You might think, if they miss me, shouldn't that bring them back? But emotional desire isn't enough to overcome emotional fear. Think about someone standing at the edge of a pool. They want to jump in, they want to swim, but the fear of drowning holds them back. Missing you is standing at the edge. Readiness for you is the courage to dive in. And unless they've worked through the fear that love equals loss, they'll stay frozen there, longing but motionless. That's why it's so important not to take their silence as proof that you didn't matter. Their feelings don't disappear, they just don't know how to manage them. When you cross their mind, they may feel that tug in their heart, but instead of reaching out, they suppress it. They tell themselves it's safer to stay away than risk getting hurt, losing control, or disappointing you. That's the tragedy of avoidance. It keeps love locked behind walls built for protection. What makes this dynamic painful is that you, on the other side, often interpret their absence as rejection. You start to think you weren't enough to make them stay. But avoidance isn't about worth, it's about capacity. You could be the most patient, loving, and emotionally safe person in the world, and still, an avoidant person won't stay unless they choose to face their fears. It's not your responsibility to convince them to do that, it's their journey. So when they miss you but still stay away, understand that it's not indifference, it's paralysis. Their longing is real, but their readiness requires a level of emotional self-awareness they may not yet have. Missing someone doesn't heal the wounds that make intimacy scary. It takes introspection, therapy, and courage to unlearn those patterns. Until they do that, their missing you will always be silent, internal, and distant. They may ache for you, but they won't know how to hold you. And that's why your peace lies not in waiting for their readiness, but in recognizing that missing you and being ready for you are two entirely separate things. When someone pulls away, our instinct is often to chase. We think if we can just say the right thing, show enough care, or prove our loyalty, they'll come back. But chasing someone who's avoiding you never creates closeness. It reinforces the very fear that made them pull away. An avoidant person already associates intimacy with pressure, and when you pursue them during withdrawal, you unintentionally confirm that fear. What they experience as overwhelming pursuit, you see as reassurance, and that emotional mismatch widens the gap even further. Avoidant people often operate from a subconscious belief that love equals loss of freedom. The moment things start to feel serious or emotionally charged, they feel a need to regain control. That's when they pull back, go silent, or create emotional distance. To them, stepping away is self-protection, but when you chase them, you signal that they're losing autonomy again, that their space isn't safe. They don't interpret your effort as love, they experience it as pressure. And pressure to them feels like danger. Chasing also shifts the balance of emotional energy. It turns love into a pursuit rather than a partnership. You begin to operate from fear. Fear of losing them, fear of being abandoned. And that fear drives you to do more, give more, and compromise more. The more you chase, the less they feel responsible for the connection. They stop needing to show up because you're doing all the emotional work. What started as love slowly turns into an anxious dance, where one person is running and the other is reaching, but no one feels secure. The tragedy is that your chase often comes from a good place. You care. You want to fix what's broken, but you can't fix someone's avoidance by proving your worth. Avoidance isn't about whether you're lovable. It's about their inability to tolerate emotional closeness. You could offer them peace, safety, and unconditional love, but if their internal wiring tells them closeness is dangerous, they'll still find a reason to step back. It's not that you're doing too much or too little. It's that they can't receive it yet. What actually helps an avoidant person feel safe is consistency, not pursuit. They need to experience love as something calm, not consuming. When you stop chasing, you create space for them to feel their own emotions instead of reacting to yours. You remove the external pressure that keeps triggering their defenses. Sometimes your silence gives them the chance to face themselves, to realize that the distance they create doesn't bring peace, it brings loneliness. This doesn't mean you play games or withdraw to manipulate. It means you honor your boundaries and your dignity. You understand that real connection requires two people who both choose to engage. Love can't survive when one person is always proving and the other is always retreating. True intimacy comes from mutual willingness, not pursuit. When you stop chasing and start respecting your own emotional limits, you shift from anxiety to power. You show that love is not about begging someone to stay, it's about standing still until both hearts are ready to meet in the middle. Silence often feels like the hardest thing to give when you care deeply about someone who's pulled away. You want to fix it, talk it out, reach out just one more time to remind them of what you shared. But sometimes silence says what words never could. It draws a line between effort and self-respect. When an avoidant person distances themselves, filling the space with words, explanations, or pleas doesn't make them come closer. It makes them retreat further. Silence, on the other hand, becomes a mirror that reflects back their own choices. It's not about punishment or pride. It's about allowing clarity to rise where confusion once ruled. For someone who avoids emotional intimacy, silence can be powerful because it's the one thing they can't control or predict. When you stop chasing or explaining, they're left with their own thoughts. They can't hide behind excuses or distractions. They begin to feel your absence, not as rejection, but as reality. In that quiet, they might start realizing the weight of what they've lost. Because while your words once filled the space between you, your silence now fills it with consequence. Silence is not manipulation, it's maturity. It's the act of choosing self-preservation over chaos. It says, I value connection, but not at the expense of my peace. It communicates strength in a way that constant reaching never could. When you remain silent, you're not being cold, you're being clear. You're saying that communication requires two people, not one person doing all the emotional labor while the other hides. Many people mistake silence for indifference, but it's often the opposite. It's what happens when you've cared loudly for too long and realized that quiet is the only language left. It's an emotional reset, a pause that allows both people to feel the true temperature of the relationship. And for avoidant individuals, that silence can be uncomfortable because it forces them to confront the very emotions they've been avoiding. Without your constant reassurance or messages, they can no longer escape the emptiness that avoidance creates. In that space, something crucial happens. They start to feel the loss, not just notice it. Missing you in silence makes them realize that distance doesn't equal safety. It equals loneliness. That's where growth can begin. But whether or not they reach that realization isn't your responsibility. Your silence isn't meant to provoke a reaction. It's meant to protect your heart. It's your way of saying, if you want to meet me, you have to step forward too. True strength often looks like restraint. It's not about being unavailable or playing games. It's about valuing your energy enough to know when words are no longer being heard. Silence creates boundaries where chaos once lived. It lets both people see the truth of the situation without the noise of justification or pleading. And sometimes it's only through silence that an avoidant person can feel the gravity of their own distance. It's in that quiet space that reality echoes loudest, reminding both of you that love cannot thrive where one person is always the only one speaking. It's a beautiful yet painful truth that love alone is not enough to heal someone's emotional wounds. When you care deeply for someone who is avoidant, your instinct might be to show them what safety feels like, to love them enough that they finally let their walls down. You think that if you can just be patient enough, calm enough, or understanding enough, they'll eventually learn how to stay. But the truth is, no matter how pure your intentions are, you can't heal what someone refuses to face. Love can inspire growth, but it cannot replace the personal work that healing requires. You are not their therapist, nor are you their savior. You're a person who deserves to be met with equal emotional effort. Avoidant people often carry unhealed pain from their past childhood experiences where closeness felt unsafe, unpredictable, or suffocating. Their emotional reflex is to withdraw whenever vulnerability feels too intense. They protect themselves by shutting down, not realizing that in doing so, they also shut you out. And while your compassion might tell you to stay and show them that not all love is scary, it's important to understand that true healing comes from within, not from someone else's comfort. You can offer them an example of emotional security, but you can't force them to embrace it. When you take on the role of healer, you unknowingly take on a burden that isn't yours to carry. You start absorbing their emotional patterns, excusing their distance, and minimizing your own needs just to keep the peace. Slowly, you lose sight of the fact that relationships are meant to be reciprocal. Healing someone who doesn't want to heal keeps you trapped in an emotional cycle that drains your strength and confidence. You end up waiting for a version of them that may never arrive, all while neglecting the parts of you that need attention too. True love is not about fixing someone. It's about accepting them as they are while knowing when to step back. It's about holding space for their journey without sacrificing your own emotional well-being. You can be a light in their life, but you can't be their source of power. Only they can decide to confront their fears, seek help, or change their behavior. And often, the most loving thing you can do is to stop trying to save them. Because when you step back, you give them the opportunity to face themselves without the safety net of your constant reassurance. It's easy to confuse empathy with obligation, but boundaries are also a form of love, especially self-love. You teach people how to treat you not by fixing them, but by respecting yourself enough to walk away when they refuse to meet you halfway. Healing is personal work, and until someone chooses to do that for themselves, no amount of affection or understanding will make them emotionally available. Love can open the door, but they have to walk through it. And your job is not to drag them, it's to keep walking toward peace, even if they choose to stand still. When a relationship ends or someone you love pulls away, your heart often becomes a battlefield between hope and self-worth. You start thinking that maybe if you'd done something differently, been more patient, less emotional, more understanding, they would have stayed. But real love isn't about proving your worth to someone who can't see it. It's about recognizing that your value doesn't shrink just because someone else isn't ready to meet you where you are. Choosing yourself after loss isn't selfish, it's survival. It's how you rebuild the foundation of your peace after someone has shaken it. When an avoidant person leaves, it's tempting to make their return the ultimate goal. You start imagining scenarios where they realize what they lost, come back changed, and everything finally makes sense. But this mindset keeps you emotionally stuck. It ties your healing to their decision instead of your own. Waiting for someone else's readiness keeps you in emotional limbo, hoping for closure from a person who may never give it. The truth is, you don't heal by waiting. You heal by deciding that your growth matters more than their absence. Self-worth isn't about pretending you don't care or forcing yourself to move on instantly. It's about understanding that your energy, time, and love are sacred. When you redirect the effort you once gave to them back into yourself, everything starts to shift. You stop trying to decode mixed signals and start paying attention to what your own soul is asking for: peace, stability, and genuine connection. You begin to realize that love should feel safe, not anxious, nourishing, not draining. The right person won't make you question your worth just by being close. Letting go doesn't mean you erase the memories or stop feeling. It means you stop romanticizing potential and start honoring reality. You acknowledge that missing someone doesn't mean you belong with them. It's possible to still care about them and still choose yourself. The courage to move forward comes when you realize that your happiness cannot depend on someone else's healing timeline. You can wish them well while knowing that your future deserves people who show up fully, not halfway. Reclaiming self-worth after loving an avoidant person is an act of emotional reclamation. It's standing tall after being made to feel too much or not enough. It's saying, I still believe in love, but I won't settle for fear disguised as it. Every time you choose to focus on your peace instead of their silence, you strengthen the relationship you have with yourself. You start building a life where you are no longer waiting for validation from someone else's presence. The goal isn't to get them back, it's to get yourself back. To rediscover the version of you that knows your worth without needing it mirrored by another person. Because love isn't about finding someone who finally sees your value, it's about never forgetting it again. You were whole before they came into your life, and you will be whole again, stronger, wiser, and more certain of what kind of love you truly deserve. In the end, love isn't about who stays the longest, it's about who shows up with honesty, courage, and consistency. Sometimes the people who miss us the most are the least capable of loving us the way we deserve, and that's a truth we must learn to accept with grace, not bitterness. Healing begins when we stop chasing closure and start creating peace within ourselves. So let this be your reminder. You are not too much, too emotional, or too hard to love. You just need someone brave enough to stay. Thank you for listening, for choosing growth over pain, and for remembering that the most powerful love story you'll ever live is the one you write with yourself.